Hi, Jenny. Great to see you today. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you. Lovely to see you too.
Good. So let me introduce you, Jenny. Jenny, you're CEO and founder and chief coding adventurer at
Yes, it is very important.
Very important.
Coding adventurer.
Which is an award-winning social enterprise which you set up exclusively and inclusively to inspire the tech innovators of the future. And I think I'm really curious because your background is in technology, you're an instructor, you're a consultant, but this program is much more than a teaching session, isn't it? It's about storytelling, it's about performance, it's about concepts, and I know you're passionate about encouraging all girls and all children, particularly with all their gifts that they have, to come into the world of tech.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. It's because I was also fascinated. I found a quote that you said actually this morning.
Yeah.
So it said, you said, your advice to women and young girls considering a tech education is go for it. Don't allow anything to hold you back. And I love that.
Yes.
And I love
that. I did say that. It's true. And I kind of feel that really passionately. It's about believing in yourself, and I think there's an importance that everybody has in finding your sort of confidence within yourself, and that was part of setting up Get With The Programme. I'd thought about it for quite a long time. My background's in technology. I've worked in the industry for about 25 years, and I could see, as my children were going through primary schools, that there needed to be more support in the schooling side of things, and the sort of the way in which the teachers were supported, because quite a lot of them, particularly in primary school, were quite frightened of the computing curriculum that was just coming in. And so I was just trying to work out a way in which to use my knowledge and my network and create that kind of engagement. I love communicating. I've worked as an instructor a lot of the time, as well as been involved in implementation projects. And how could I take that and find a way to support others, particularly other women and girls who were going through that sort of same experience that I did when I was younger. So it was exciting. It was about finding a route that would engage as many people as possible. So that was how Get With The Programme kind of got started, watching my children go through primary school and trying to work out how I could help the teachers make more of a difference and help them feel comfortable with technology.
So you design Get With A Programme, but it's much more. I mean, when you say Get With A Programme, you just think, oh, you're running a programme, but it's not like that, is it? Tell us a bit more how the characters came about and what you actually do with Get With The Programme.
So originally, I was trying to think about a way of helping the computing curriculum come to life. So I was talking with the head teacher at the primary school where my children had been, and she was pointing out that they were doing some healthy eating content, and that they were also, it was the anniversary of the 50th moon landing, so that's 5 years ago now. And I came up with an idea where I would have someone dressed as a robot and we would program them, and we would learn all the terms from the curriculum, but in a theatrical way. And use a bit of slapstick humour and a bit sort of pantomime style. So I invented Al the robot. I've got a wonderful friend who's created costumes for Disney on Ice and things like that to make an amazing costume. But I wanted to make sure we were also normalising the visibility of underrepresented groups. So Al the robot's a female robot. Her name's Al, short for algorithm, which is one of the key terms for the computing curriculum. And then I realised I was going to have to also stand up and perform, and I felt a bit anxious. I was comfortable with comfortable with adults, but felt a bit less comfortable with 5-year-olds. So I put on a bit of armour. I put on a white coat and fake glasses as my kind of protection mechanism, and sort of found an alter ego. So I now dress as a professor. I call myself Professor Trice, and pretend I've got a robot. But as you said, it's not simply that. We talk about underrepresented groups. So in our moon landing coding adventure, talk about Katherine Johnson and Margaret Hamilton. Yes, there's that Neil Armstrong guy, but I'm more interested in these people. And we do that across everything that we do. And that really strikes home. I know children have come to me, or we often film our content now. So we use a professional green screen studio, and so it makes the whole thing more scalable. And the children tell teachers and have said to me, they're things like, I had no idea there was someone who looked like me who was part of the original moon landing. And that's incredibly powerful. And I think that kind of links into your podcast question, which is, thinking about the future. It's how do we engage more people of different backgrounds in technology when typically you're going to have a particular typeset that's expected or that you see in those as those role models, and we need to change that.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know whether it's a celebrity status or not. I don't know, but there is. I love what you're doing because representation matters. When I was at school, it wasn't really talked about that much. We were just given that curriculum. There certainly weren't computers around in my day in education.
Yeah, no, me neither.
But even in other subjects, you look around, you were just told this is the curriculum and this is what you do. You go into work and these are the people at the senior levels. This is what you do. These are the people that supposedly should inspire you, and this is how it goes. And actually, as the world is shifting quite a lot, that representation really matters to people. Even if you're loud, it's loud and in this group, or whether it's just quietly, you go, oh, she looks like me, or she thinks like me, or that's really interesting. So having that inspiration from lots of different angles, I think is really important for a richer society.
I think so. There's a part of it that is about, inspiring the workforce of the future, and inspiring them into directions that aren't necessarily seen as the default, and looking at historical figures and addressing the balance a little bit. So with our Healthy Lunchbox coding adventure, we look at people from the past and current who are scientists in nutrition and are women or people of colour, and that starts just again quietly normalising the visibility of those underrepresented groups, and I think as well it's about giving somebody who's perhaps they're not thinking of a role for themselves outside their own postcode to sort of be able to see what's possible and to say yes you can. It's a really powerful message. And that goes back to the quote earlier, just go for it. Anybody has those opportunities open to them. Yes, you might need to find the right route. But for me, it's about STEM careers and making sure that there's a diversity of thought that goes into their way of thinking. But it's about having confidence and having visibility of role models is fundamental to that, and making sure that people see what's possible. And actually, that does remind me of a conversation I've had not so long ago about accidental role models. When I was talking to somebody, some of the head teachers at one of the schools I've worked at, and we were talking about, the fact we were putting role models into our content. And she said to me that I was a role model, and I was quite taken aback. I was kind of, well, no, I'm just presenting this stuff, and I'm encouraging them to see other role models. And she's like, no, you are the role model here as well. And I feel quite emotional just talking about it, actually. And actually, when I was talking, I did a speech quite recently to some students who had got through to a final at a STEM event. And I was explaining to them that they too have become role models just by being, reaching that opportunity. Now turn around and go and talk to more young people about what you're doing and how they can get involved and how exciting that is, because you've accidentally become a role model too. And I think that's, same goes for you, Juliet, same goes for anybody listening. We can all make a difference.
Absolutely. I feel that a lot. That's so important. And I talk about it a lot with clients, with colleagues, with people I, network with about, I was running an event a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to them about change leadership, and it was all about how do we do stuff? Well, how will you show up? Because the impact and conversations you had and will have to affect that change, to make it a positive future, is how you interact, how you show up. Because people will look at you and go, that's really interesting. They've allowed me to be curious, or I can go and explore, I can do this. And it's incredibly powerful. It's building that from an education level to give people, like you said, that confidence, young children, that confidence and that inner belief to keep going through all the knocks that will happen in life, all the challenges and all the opportunities to go, I believe in that, I'm going to keep going. And I think that's almost like that muscle that we can train. And it's so important, so important. We've had such a dramatic effect, and it will keep happening in the world over the last 4 years. So
it's really interesting you describe it like that, because we've just recently become an impact partner for an organisation called Skills Builder. And they have these 8 essential skills that they've got a framework. It works through from primary age children all the way up to adulthood. And there's these 8 skills that kind of align to work, to life and work, which include listening, speaking skills, leadership, positive, responding positively, resilience. I don't think that's quite the names they give them. Aiming high. I think, like you said, learning to, when we talk about our coding adventures, we talk about some of the words that are really for the very young age group, for the 5-year-olds. They need to know things like the word algorithm. It's a step-by-step set of instructions. They need to understand decomposition, breaking big steps into small steps, and debugging, which we describe as having another go until you get what you hoped for. It's not wrong. You just haven't got it right yet. And it's that growth mindset that, again, is just fundamental to give everybody the confidence to say, that's okay. It happens so often in programming. We've got a special word for it. It's called debugging. Just expect not everything will go according to plan, but keep working and building towards your goals. And maybe that, I'm just thinking then, that goes back to this, the visible role models that we see, or the visible adventurers that we see in the world. It's portrayed as if it's quite perfect. They've gone one here to here and they're suddenly in the moon, or they've invented this product or coding, whatever it is. But actually it takes a lot of work, a lot of failures and a lot of evolution. I don't think this perfect world that we're supposed to live in is so imperfect. But that's the key, isn't it? Imperfection leads to breakthroughs, really does lead to breakthroughs. And that's really interesting you say that, because I was just thinking about diversity of thought and how not only does imperfection lead to another way of thinking, or rethinking something you thought you knew the answer to. I think having other people in the room who think differently from you help with that. And that's why I feel so strongly about inspiring, inclusively inspiring the tech innovators of the future. You want people with a different way of thinking at that table, coming up with new ideas, so that one day we can solve the world's biggest problems, because we had enough creative thinkers in the room, from a variety of backgrounds. And that stuff is really important.
I always say it's asking the questions that people either don't want to think about or haven't said yet. So if you ask the questions where you go from a point of curiosity, where you go, well, how does that work? What happens if we do this? How does that all link together? Because that will stop people running off and doing this thing and go, oh, okay, maybe we can do it simpler, better, differently, whatever that is.
And that the sort of future aspect of that is, the what kind of future is a world where people feel comfortable being curious, asking the questions, not always working with someone that thinks the same way that they do. Allow people into the room that either challenge or are creative or have a different way of thinking, so that we can get a better outcome. It's really important. And it's what I feel really passionate about. And that's why I end up dressed as a professor and pretending I've got a robot.
You look good as a professor. It's brilliant.
Not a real professor, not yet. I always put quotes around it just to make sure everybody knows not a real professor.
So what ages do you focus on with the programme?
So right now, our Al the Robot costume look is great for 5 to 9 year olds. So once you get slightly older than that, they're not convinced by the robot, but it's really fun up to that point. So most of our coding adventures, we've got a moon landing coding adventure, healthy eating, an eco one about reducing waste, and we've got our Al the Robot and the Three Bears coding pantomime, which is brilliant fun. We actually, when we first created that with Winchester Science Centre, we had 250,000 children around the world watched it in just before Christmas in 2020. So it was absolutely amazing. Bupa is one of our sponsors, and they've actually helped us extend to our healthy lunchbox coding adventure to the top of primary. So that's 9, 10, 11 year olds, where we've got a real robot that we've filmed in a robotics lab. And we're now doing a net zero piece with them, which is for 11 to 13 year olds. And that's going to be less me dressed as a professor and pretending I've got a robot, rather more about data science, computer science, AI, and looking at how tech for good can make a difference to the planet. So it's quite exciting topics.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait.
Really exciting.
That's going to be launched in March, but we've got some pilots running next September and November. It's very good. Very, very
That's
cool.
brilliant. And I love that, because we know that, you and I know that primary school children are the most influenced and influential, right? So if you get them young, spark their thinking and their brains, their creative mindsets, then you can now take them through that journey to, it's like teenage years, where they're starting to act and can do things differently and have a choice how they want to.
And I think, again, there's a point at that decision stage when they've just started secondary, when they're looking at what their GCSE is going to be or something along those lines, where you find that there is a time that certain groups fall off and fall away from STEM careers. And that's vital to sort of say, look, your creativity can still be part of this. And again, particularly for girls, but all sorts of people from different backgrounds, encouraging creativity within technology is actually, it's not just having to follow instructions. It's thinking outside the box. And that's really exciting. And it encourages everybody, more and more people, to see the creativity in it.
So where do you see this going? Because I know you talked about growth mindset and listening and curiosity, but what impact, I guess, do you hope this programme has on the future of the children?
Well, we have lovely bits of feedback. We get sent photographs of children who've created content, their own robots, and parents who've said how much their children enjoyed it. And what I hope is that those children come away from our one day red letter day events, always remembering that was the moment that they decided to get into a career in technology. It's an exciting. I always remember when we saw the robot in the school, or we did our moon landing coding adventure, or something along those lines. And it's a turning point, is what I'd like to think of it as. To then encourage their curiosity, support the teaching staff as well, and get all that enthusiasm continuing until their adulthood. I think that's what I'm hoping for. We at the moment, a lot of our content is freely accessible to schools. So because we get corporate sponsors, so I'm hoping for more schools to get involved in that. I'm hoping for more corporate sponsors to get involved with what we do. We're also having conversations about internationalizing and translating. So there's a lot that we're hoping to do in our future, which will expand the future of even more children into their adulthood.
Sounds really cool.
It's really exciting.
And how do you think this could link with the other subjects? So I'm just thinking if teachers are listening, or educators or companies are thinking, well, this is just a program, because it's not just a program, it interlinks with a whole load of different subjects. But how do you see it actively integrating into the education system? Full stop.
So the basis of what we do is we ensure that the computing curriculum components are defined. So that kind of ticks a box, although it's not a box ticking exercise, but it helps the teachers feel confident that curriculum topics are covered. But then we put it into real world examples or cross-curricular content. We make sure we think about terminology that might be in the maths curriculum or the science curriculums. We think about themes that overlap. With our net zero piece, we're looking at, imagine doing something in your own school. If you could make a difference to how many people walked or rode bikes to school versus came by car, what long-term impact is that? And that goes into sort of geography, or if you could persuade your school to put more solar panels on the roof. So yeah, from a teaching point of view, but the basis is computing curriculum. But because it builds on so many other topics, and that, we're looking at all sorts of other topics we could cover. So I'd be interested in, the finance industry. We're looking at agriculture, manufacturing. There's all sorts of topics we can overlap into our framework, which would be really exciting to look at in the future as well. So, the teachers, we would love to, there's an opportunity for people to nominate a school on our website. So please go ahead and do that. We're on getwiththeprogram.org.uk. And you can go from there to nominate a school and see if we've got funding to support you to run one of our coding adventures.
That's really fun. So you've got Get With The Programme. You've talked about the Net Zero project for next year. Where do you see, or where do you hope to see Get With The Programme impact the future? Because it's not just about these two. You're on this process of evolution, right? So where next? Well, we've got lots of things we're looking at in the future. We're extending to other age groups. We're extending to more sponsorship. We're looking at ways of getting to more countries, to more children. We're looking at the potential for broadcast television. We're looking at all sorts of different opportunities. But it's all fundamentally around that inclusivity message. And I think that's the thing. I'm interested in speaking about inclusivity and how the organisation exists. I haven't even touched on the fact that we ensure that we create roles for those individuals who want to be primary carers for their children. I create school hours, term time roles. So we're not just creating opportunities for the children and the teachers, but we're actually creating job opportunities for perhaps women who want to pivot into digital or other opportunities. And it's about taking that message out further and getting more organisations to think the same way that we are, to recognise the importance of diversity of thought in their environment, and that you have to start young to create that workforce of the future, and to think about how that funding can be well spent. And then try and inspire more people to support that in everything that they do, in their own workplace, in the support of their own children, and encouraging more diverse
diversity everywhere that they think about. The future is really going to involve engagement in opportunity for everyone.
Mm. I love what you said about the workforce of the future. So we're in this time now where everything is up for play because we've got multiple generations in the workforce. We've got lots of questions being asked on why do we have to do it that way? You know, why can we do it in a different way? And got people going into the office, out the office, you know, all it's all up for play.
Mm.
So when you talk about the workplace of the future, what do you hope that would look like for future generations?
Oh, I personally think that there needs to be plenty of flexibility, but I don't think that means that it needs to only be based in a kind of flexible environment where people are all working from home. I think there needs to be choice. I think there needs to be encouragement for people to work together. But I do feel the flexibility that has come upon us based on the COVID pandemic, where more people have the option to work from home, actually creates more opportunities for people who need that. And that's often primary carers, so typically women. It's created a much more robust work environment for somebody who needs to be able to pause briefly and make sure, you know, their children are safe home from school. And I feel uncomfortable about that reverting, actually, when there's conversations about enforcing everybody back into the office. That's actually discriminatory against typically women. And I find that very frustrating. So I see the future workforce as one that gives everybody the opportunity to work in a way that facilitates their being able to work to the best of their ability, but also make sure that they're available for some other things outside work, you know, the work-life balance, and create those opportunities for more people who have different backgrounds and environments they need support in.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. It was counterintuitive, isn't it, to have all that? I know it happened pretty quickly overnight with the pandemic, but it feels counterintuitive to completely reverse it just because that's what we used to do. When actually, for some people, it's worked really well. And there is no one size fits all.
No, and you know, there are work environments where it's not appropriate, but I do feel that sometimes the people making those decisions aren't the ones that benefit from the flexibility. So they perhaps don't understand the power of those decisions.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more careful thought. And again, that's the kind of making sure that enough people involved in the conversation so that there's different points of view that are taken into account. It's about a diversity of thought.
Agree. So let's briefly talk about STEM.
Yes.
Because you and I are both passionate about it. And you are, you know, paving the way for education. But what does the future of STEM look like then? Because we talked about the workplace, we talked about your program, but what about STEM?
That is an interesting question. So, well, first of all, I do think the future of STEM needs to be the future of STEAM. So we need to add in that art part. And on our website, it's STEM everywhere, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But often the A is put in for arts because there's so much of an overlap in those. And, you know, you need people to design in order to create amazing engineering constructions, let's say. You need people who can explain and create content that is beautiful and gets the message across well. And so that's the first thing. I think it needs to incorporate a wider recognition and think about it regularly as STEAM rather than STEM. And again, I think that means it makes it more accessible to more people. Typically, you know, I'm always interested first and foremost in women and girls, but you know, others who come from all sorts of different backgrounds and experiences. And I think there's some interesting questions, particularly around technology, computing technology, and artificial intelligence that inevitably come into this kind of conversation. Quite a lot of people have been saying to me, oh, well, now AI will do all the programming. Well, I don't think that's quite how it's going to pan out. Now, obviously, I can't see into the future, so I may find I'm wrong. But we still need to be able to lift the lid on any of our technology, be that a car that's, uses mechanical engineering and you can replace parts, or one that needs a computer to be plugged into it in order to diagnose what's wrong with it. There still needs to be somebody who understands how that works. And I think our curiosity is always going to be there. And so I think it's exciting because, it all continues to develop at such a rate. I don't know how you feel about that, but, the speed of change is pretty phenomenal. And it makes it fascinating to see where next. But it's also in that it's the only constant's going to be change, isn't it? You can't predict where it's going next. You can predict it's going to be different, though.
Yeah, it's really interesting because AI has been around in some shape or form for a little while now.
Yeah.
And change has been evolving faster over the last 10 years than I can ever remember. But I was listening to someone talking from a large organization who said that we should just let technology run itself and let it go. Stop controlling what the input is. And my feeling is that I think actually that's really important, understanding what input is going in. So diverse thinking, a range of people, a bit like when coding started, having that wide input is really important to get much better quality out the other side. And actually having some style of management over it, human management over it, I think is really important because there is that danger it crosses over. And that's my worry about the future. I think we've got an opportunity to build really cool, and there's some really cool stuff happening, innovations happening.
Amazing things.
Amazing stuff.
One of the things I'm most excited about is that they are developing drugs that are, for cancer pharmaceuticals that are being developed in labs in space in zero gravity, because it creates a purer substance that then improves the whatever the word is, effectiveness of those. And you just sort of think about the combination of those things and who had to think about all the different layers in order for that kind of technological development, and all the different, standing on the shoulder of giants equivalent to get to that amazing point. There's so many amazing things still to come, but we can't let it run itself, because whatever, there's a point at which the assumptions that are made by the system will not be appropriate, because it's not necessarily been given all the information, or is the input has not been carefully selected, and the assumptions will be made by an artificial intelligence that a human being can recognize and redirect appropriately, which the computer just won't do. And so I think having a framework is really important to protect everybody in that side of things, but in a way that allows growth and exciting, development too.
Yeah. I think we have to do things much more consciously, rather than going, oh, this is the next exciting thing. Here we go, and let's run with it. I think, what's, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, what's the impact that we want to have with that?
Yeah, I think so. And that's why, ensuring that even from a young age, there's a really good understanding of technology. It's about, I remember when children, sort of as my children were growing up, all the young children coming into school knew how to use a mouse because they started using it when they were 2. children these days don't know how to use a mouse because they use touchscreens all the time.
Mm.
But it's that kind of implicit knowledge that then, if you can build that in at an early age, it then allows you to, be confident in understanding technology. And then you can extend that and feel confident in questioning technology. And if we can give everyone those opportunities to feel confident in questioning technology, then that creates a much safer environment for everybody, where we kind of go, well, I feel like I know what's happening to a point, and I'm not comfortable with that. And I think, it's not dissimilar from, being in the workforce and, seeing a business and kind of going, well, I see what's happening in the leadership. I'm not comfortable with that. And being able to question, I think there's some similarities to be had in there, actually, which I think is interesting.
And akin to social media, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of children don't want to be on social media. They're making the choice now.
Yeah.
When parents are clicking and taking photos of them and posting them, actually, children are saying, I don't want to be on there.
Yeah.
And making a choice. So being very conscious about what we consume and how we share is key. But creating that right environment, like you said.
Yeah. And a confident, curious environment that thinks about, as many of the angles as you can. I think it's really important and exciting too. You're not restraining, you're just being, conscientious about your curiosity. I think that's where STEM or STEAM needs to be going, is, make these amazing discoveries, but be conscientious while you're doing it, thinking about the bigger picture.
I love that. What a brilliant note to end on. Conscientious. I love that.
Oh, lovely to chat to you, though. This has been
brilliant.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeni. We'll have to chat again.
Yeah. I know.
Next year. Love to talk about net zero.
Yes. Well, I'll have more information next time.
Yeah.
I'll know exactly what we're doing by then. We'll be conscientiously, curious about it at that point.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll share all the links and how, I know you shared the website, how people can get in touch with you, fund you, access to schools and more opportunities.
Brilliant. And if you have any feedback on, whether, obviously you'll edit it together and stuff like that, or and the direction things are going in, I'm always interested to have any kind of comments, good or bad, about it, and kind of go, oh, I thought that was interesting, or we might not have gone that direction. It's really interesting just to hear somebody else's point of view.
Yeah, fabulous. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jeni.